Well, welcome. Thanks for registering and showing up for our third webinar in a series called Evidence-Based Business Practices for Behavioral Healthcare Providers. My name is Michael Owen, and I work for the Accountable Behavioral Care Program at the Jordan Institute for Families at the UNC School of Social Work. We are, once again, happy to co-sponsor this webinar with Cardinal Innovations Healthcare Solutions. This is our third webinar in the series on evidence-based business practices. Your responses on evaluations of the first two webinars were generally positive and all quite polite. A couple of you, however, have asked for some more in-depth business planning advice, and we do intend to provide 2 face-to-face trainings for providers who work with Cardinal Innovations. And we're calling those face-to-face training events Practice-Based Evidence. They're going to be taught by Dan Zorn, a successful CABA owner, who will share his perspective on some of the practical business strategies that you can adopt to get you through the next wave of change in the Medicaid system. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Dan, but I think if you will attend, you will walk out with some very practical advice on how to adapt to the next wave of change. The first of his training events is going to be on August 15th, the second on August 22nd. The 15th will be in Henderson, North Carolina, the 22nd in Hillsborough. Cardinal Innovations has sent out some material about this, and we will follow up this webinar with the link so that if you're interested in registering for one of those 2 events, you can do so. Today's event is on specific ideas for supercharging your business plan. And in case you have not participated in the previous webinars, I'll point out that our faculty for today is Ron Ilinich, who works for the UNC Center for Small Business and Technology Development. Ron has a PhD in psychology with a focus on human resource development and an MSW, and he has many years of experience working with small businesses to help them strengthen their business plans. I want to just review a couple of the simple mechanics of our webinar for those of you who have not participated before. The principal ones are that you are free to chat within the chat box with any questions or comments you have during the webinar, and we will be watching those closely. The second observation I'd like to make is that if you look up at the top of the screen where there's a little icon of the person raising their hand, you can click and see the options of what you can communicate to us through agreeing or disagreeing with what you are listening to or asking us to speak louder or softer, etc. We are happy for you to laugh or applaud during the presentation if you choose to. Before I turn it over to Ron, I want to just ask you a couple of questions that might help him as he gets started. So if we can pull up our poll questions. If you wouldn't mind, just in the anonymity of our small webinar, if you would just tell us how many of you have a business plan, and if it's a written business plan, and does it reflect the business you do today and that you hope to be in 2013 and 14? Great, although it appears that some of you express a slight degree of ambivalence by changing your vote from moment to moment, by and large it looks as if most of you do have a business plan, a written business plan from which you work, and that you believe that it reflects the business that you're doing today. So with that context, I'm going to turn it over to our faculty, Ron Ilinich.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to be with you again today. I say welcome to those who are here for the first time, those who were here last time, and those who've been here all 3 times. As Michael said, our purpose today is to look at the basic business plan. We're going to do a walkthrough of that plan. I hope you'll get some tips along the way for how to energize it. And let me emphasize, it is a basic business plan. if I had asked one other question up front, it might have been, how many of you have held your business plan in your hands in the last month or have consulted it when you had a decision to make? The point being, oftentimes we're benefited by going back to the basics and making sure that foundation is in place. You will get more advanced techniques, insider trade secrets perhaps, all kinds of good things in the face-to-face sessions with Dan Zorn, and I hope most or all of you can make those. At the end of our brief presentation today, I put together just a half dozen resources for you to get more in-depth information and more specific, more particular resources if you have questions that they would help with. So, business plan considerations. Why do it? And before you invest time and energy in doing, or let's say redoing, your business plan, I would have you consider very carefully your audience and your purpose. Who are you writing this plan for? There could be a good many answers to that. They probably will have some relationship to what's the purpose of your plan, what's the goal here. Your business plan can be and should be a very dynamic organizing tool. And when I say dynamic, I mean not up on the shelf, but something that you change, you modify, you consult, and you revisit from time to time. Just as your business changes, your business plan should change. It's a recruiting tool if you're trying to attract that exceptional talent and you want them to have a first-class way to know what you're inviting them to be a part of. Clearly, it's a fundraising tool, in fact, a requirement if you're looking for, usually, if not always, if you're looking for investment capital or if you're going to traditional lenders. It's simply a great tracking document with performance benchmarks if you do it well. This is a roadmap to your destination, to your success. And I would encourage you on the front end here for your business plan to make it confidential. It contains a great deal of detailed information probably about your business. It may contain proprietary information, some of it protected and some of it not. So a good idea usually on that front page to make it clear in the bottom right corner somewhere that is a confidential document. You may want to go so far as to number it and to know to whom you give out copies of this, including potential investors, for instance, and that you want the copies back. It's probably worth adding a copyright to your plan. It's probably worth putting in writing that it may not be reproduced and copied without your permission. In total, my experience over the last couple decades now suggests to me this: a well-crafted business plan tells a very good story. It tells your story of your business. And it also instills confidence in the reader that you will be successful. The way that you accomplish this with finance people is usually with numbers, with financials. So there should be a very compelling story, and there should be very strong numbers to support it. And we'll talk in a bit about how do you put in strong numbers if they're projections and not actual historical data. And hopefully you have some of both. I will mention this also before we launch into it, that there are many successful businesses out there, I'm sure, that do not have written business plans. There are also very well-written business plans that represent failed businesses. So this is no panacea. It's not a guarantee. However, all other things being equal, the single strongest piece of evidence that I bring to these webinars for you right now is to tell you that I believe having a well-crafted, well-thought-through written business plan makes it nearly impossible for you to have forgotten or glossed over one of the major functional areas of your business. It's the way to cover your bets and to advance your business, all other things being equal, ahead of your competition. So here's an outline, and you have choices for how you would approach your business plan or the rewriting of your business plan. You can buy softwares, which I wouldn't offhand recommend. You can pay someone else to do it. I also would not usually recommend that, although you may have a collaboration. What you see in front of you now is a very straightforward, simple format. This is found in a document that's available to you or anyone else in North Carolina for free through the SBTDC of North Carolina. Chapter 5 of our Business Startup and Resource Guide is the basic business plan outline and suggestions and encouragements for how to do it. So you'll see there's 10 parts. Some of them are very quick, but I'm going to walk through each of the 10. It is the cover page, the table of contents, the executive summary, the background information about your industry, of course a description of the products and services you offer, the market plan, your particular marketing structure and how you've put together your organization, that is your people, your personnel, your business operations, the necessary financial plan, and optional but good to cap it off with a conclusion. So let's march through this. We talked earlier about 8 competitive edge competencies, and the first of the 8, I hope you're doing all 8 or recognize some effort or someone in your organizations who's doing every one of these. But the first one is planning. If you fail to plan, plan to fail. And as Louis Pasteur said, fortune favors the prepared mind. Cover page, it's this simple. Name, address, phone number, business. You want to use high quality paper. You want to package it up well. This will be a message about the quality and the exactness and the care that you put into your business. It's all reflected on that first page. If you have a logo, you will want to use it. I am not sure you would always want to list the names, titles, and addresses of owners, but depending on your audience, you might. And you probably want to date it somewhere. When was the plan completed? You wouldn't want people picking up an old copy of a plan that misrepresents your business as it is today. And we've mentioned already that you will probably want to indicate this is a confidential plan. That first page should be stunning and crisp and neat and professional. Section 2, table of contents. And this is simply listing where you find what, the major headings, and on what page. So you've already written 20% of your plan. Want to throw in here 10 success factors. The best business plan won't advance you very much if you don't have strong culture in your organization, good business practices, and a context in which that business plan makes sense. So let's just take a quick review of these. 10 success factors. This is evidence-based. This comes from the literature. 1, good strategy. Good employees. This is your human capital. You need outstanding leaders. Are you that? Leaders who inspire and motivate. You want a healthy corporate culture. People who bring their best selves to work, who share information. Not too political, not too bureaucratic, more collaborative. People who see the glass as half full, positive attitudes, healthy corporate culture. You want leaders who are on top of things. They're connected to people in the industry. They understand what the trends are. You want an organization that can handle constant change. Are you ready for that next wave of development, as Michael said? Is your company proactive, not reactive? You support and, in fact, maybe even reward creative thinkers and innovators. You encourage people to do this. We need good managers, but we also need innovators. And no silos. All functional areas of the business plan work together. The marketing people talk to the people who deliver the service, talk to people who collect the money, talk to people who take care of the building. And finally, the company has the information and data to make best decisions at all levels of the organization. There is lots of information out there, isn't there? So we count on our IT people and our analytical people to extract useful data from mountains of information in the interest of best decision making. I hope you have most or all of these going on. You probably do. Part 3 of the business plan in this format is the executive summary. Many of you may know this already. This is the most important page in your business plan. It can be any length you want as long as it's not more than 2 pages. That is 1 or 2 page summary profile. It hits the highlights. You're not trying to condense an 18 or a 30 page plan to have every single thing represented here, but you're hitting the highlights of your mission, your goals, what is truly unique and special about you. And if you're wanting to keep the attention of the reader, why will you be successful? What are your keys to success? In the development of most business plans, it's recommended that this is what you write last. You complete all other sections of your business plan. You sit down and organize this most important piece. You write it last and you put it in the very front of your plan after the table of contents. This is the only thing that many people will ever read about your business plan. They'll glance at the title page and they'll go to the executive summary. So this is where you have your chance to capture their attention, maybe their imagination, maybe their money. Very important part of your business plan. And if your audience for this particular business plan involves investors or lenders, if you're needing money, capital to advance your business, you'd be surprised how many business plans have this as a purpose, and yet they are not clear in the executive summary what they're asking for, how much, what the use of funds will be put to, and then what they're offering in return. One other small point about the executive summary is this: you should have one sentence in the executive summary that describes your business, that captures at least most of what you do. And that's a challenge. If you remember the elevator speech, you had 30 seconds in that case. But there should be one complete sentence which captures your business. If you read an executive summary and you don't know what business those folks are in, that's not a well-written plan. ROI, by the way, means return on investment. So here's some tips. You want to probably involve your staff in writing your plan. They'll have good ideas. They'll work harder to support something they help develop. And we sort of know this, but don't we forget sometimes to do it. The best business plans are simple, focused, and easy to read. Good, clear language. And page after page of narrative words is not so favorable if you can put in some interesting charts and graphs. Say the same thing, but say it in a different way. Make it just a little bit colorful. Make it easy on the eyes. When it comes to business plans, longer is not better. If you work with graduate students, sometimes you realize they never got this part of the lesson. There's a good case to be made for using an addendum. You may want to put in the background of some of your star players. You may want to identify some of the equipment vendors or some of the letters of agreement, other things that are very important to strengthen your case. But you can put these in an addendum. You need to tell your story in just a few pages in most cases. And finally, the stronger business plans acknowledge potential weaknesses. And they may very well have contingency plans for what if. This shows an unusual amount of thoroughness and realistic estimation of what you're up against in a competitive environment. Section 4 of the business plan, background information. No surprise to you, this should include, what is your business concept? How are you approaching it? What is your mission? What are your goals? How would you describe your effort? Or simply put, what business are you in? And what's unique, what's special about your business? This is the part of the plan where you get to impress the reader that you have done your homework. You understand the industry that you're a part of. What market do you serve? So what's realistic about the percentage or your share of that market that you're going to go after? And now we get to the fun stuff. How can you serve that market better than your competition? What is your differentiation, your competitive edge? This would be a great place, really, though, as well, if you're an existing business particularly, to tell your story. How did this happen? What were the origins of your business? There was probably a precipitant. There's probably a story there, which will be very engaging for the reader. And it might be part of your marketing message, part of your culture, your history. Tell the story about your business. It doesn't have to be a novel, but this is your opportunity to explain what you do in a different way. And finally here, if you have some plans for this business, it is what it is today, but where do you plan to take this business? What does the next chapter look like? Might be a great time to give people a preview of coming attractions. Section 4 is pretty basic background information. Description of services. Usually it's products and services. I think we're most all in the service industry here today. So pretty straightforward. You want to list the features of your proposed, all of your services and the features. We discussed this earlier, the difference between features and benefits. The benefit is what your customer, client, consumer experiences. Here's a great place to articulate that. What are the benefits to people choosing you, working with you? We discussed earlier what business you're in, and that could be the peace of mind business. You're keeping people safe. You're helping families and individuals have independent, autonomous lives, however you want to put it, but your services and how you've organized yourself will always drive home that message, that point. What are the features? What are the benefits? Do you have intellectual property? And you may have, which is not certainly necessarily a patent. It could be copyright materials. It could be trademarks. It could be trade secrets. If you have any other proprietary information, you do well to have good legal counsel review that with you so you protect it to the full extent that you can. And then claim it. If, for instance, you're positioning yourself for one-day acquisition, the amount of intellectual property you have is going to matter to the people who consider purchasing you and how you protected it. Here, too, you can describe future products and services. Sometimes we want to say too much, and I've seen it effectively handled by saying this is stage one of a three-stage business plan. We're currently operating with the following services. Stage 2, which we're building for and will begin, fill in the blank, will include this level of service. So here's your ability to open up the minds of the people reading your plan to see what you have in mind for them, where this business is headed. The marketing plan, or the market plan rather. If part of our mission here is to help people have confidence, these people really know what they're doing. That would be you. We have an opportunity in this portion of the plan to demonstrate our command of the industry, our knowledge of the industry. So we need to describe it. We need to have some numbers as well as some words. We certainly want to attend to the current and future trends. And while I'm on that point, let me mention IBIS World U.S. reports. Most of you are on or near a very fine university, part of the UNC system or a private school or one of our 59 community colleges. Most of these fine institutions have reference librarians, and I know the UNC system has purchased the right to IBIS World reports. I cannot tell you how impressed I am with this particular source of data. So for instance, if we stayed with IBIS, you could write down the number 62142. That's IBIS World Industry Report 62142. And the title of that report, which is as current as February 2013, is mental health and substance abuse clinics in the U.S. And what if you could find the following information very well organized and very well researched for you? Industry at a glance, executive summary of the industry, industry outlook and life cycle, key success factors, competitive landscape, cost structure benchmarks, barriers to entry, a listing of growth strategies for success,
I've noticed it on other ones too.
key statistics for your industry, and finally, industry assistance available.
The results of these things, because a lot of them don't.
All those things, either in an executive summary or a complete industry report, are available from IBIS World Reports. And most of your universities have this. Most of the SBTDC offices have ways that they can access this too. It would be fairly expensive for any of you as individual organizations to purchase this, but there is information around. The difference again between very useful information versus mountains of data. So this is a way you could get a great deal of very precise information about exactly the industry that you are a part of. The second step in the market plan is then to drill down to your market. So if that's the industry, what do you know about the North Carolina market, or whatever you define as your target market? And here's your opportunity to help the reader know how much you are very clear about what your customers, your consumers look like. And as we talked about last session, your stakeholders, there are other customers that you have, important customers. Here too you can talk about the local trends and the local market potential, and you can define your market. How big a reach do you have, and what's realistic, and who can you serve? The market plans where you talk about your competition, and none of you would do this, but many people tend to say we really don't have so much competition. And as you may have heard me say before, if you don't, you will, if you're doing what you do well. And in fact, most always, we have direct competition, we have indirect competition. There are other things people could spend those resources on, other places they could go. Here's a great place to use one of the charts or graphs to do a competitor analysis. Let's make it succinct, let's list them, let's be realistic about the benefits and features they offer, and let's see how we shape up in our column and clearly see that we're the better choice. What's our unique advantage? And if we don't come out looking better than our competitors, we have some work to do. Finally, in this section, we have market strategies. And this, to me, is one of the more creative, interesting, fun parts of the business. How do you position yourselves? What decisions have you made about what will be your competitive edge, your differentiators? And we know we can't be all things to all people, though we might like to be. In your industry, for instance, I'm not sure there's a great deal of variability about price. Although some payers, I understand, will pay up to 15% more if certain levels of outcomes are achieved. So don't we want to be good at that? But you get to choose. On what basis will you be super competitive? It could be your distribution, where you're located. It could be your customer service, and I'll have more to say about that in a bit. It could be your professionalism and reputation, which you've worked hard to establish. Here's where you get to tell that part of the story. Just for a minute, back to organizational culture. I have a question for you and a concept. Do you know with 100% accuracy that every employee in your organization can clearly articulate the top 3 goals for your company? Do you know that? And wouldn't that be a great thing to know? What 3 things are going to set you apart? Or what 3 things have you elected as your goals, maybe for this year, for your company? And can everyone know that? That's part of your culture, and that speaks to the teamwork and the way that you've taken time to get everybody on the same page. No silos. A second concept here is this quote: alignment is necessary to ensure that desired results are achieved. performance excellence. Performance excellence happens when the strategies, systems, and people are working together to build loyal internal customers that drive loyal external customers. In that statement are many implications. There's an implication of loyalty and commitment, which translates into repeat business, which translates into collaboration, reputation, and hopefully the bottom line, as well as the all-important outcomes, which is why you did this business probably in the first place. So let's not forget the culture that you're developing and that this business plan also represents. Seven, management structure and organization. It may seem like a small point, but in your business plan you should make it clear what legal form of ownership your business has. Are you a C Corp, are you an S Corp, an LLC, a partnership, etc.? You need to be clear on this. One of the reasons you need to be clear on this is for those of you who are small operations or maybe recently formed, if you are a sole proprietor, for instance, or let me just say there are ways in which you cannot have protected and insulated your personal assets from your business assets, and that would be a mistake in today's business world in most cases. So you want to protect yourself. Secondly, if your goal, for instance, is to one day be so attractive that you are acquired, then you will want to be, for instance, probably a C Corp, where you get the luxury of paying taxes twice. But acquirers are going to want a C Corp for different levels of stock. I'm not an attorney. I don't mean to speak like one. But I will just say this is an important question for you to sit down with your counsel. Make sure you've got it right, not only for where your company is today, but for where you're headed. The IRS is not fond of people moving and changing their business entities from one form to another. And in fact, they prohibit some. You can go from here to there, but not from there to here, or you have to wait 3 years. So this is an important small piece to get right, and it should be tied to your strategy and your long-term goals. Secondly, most of this management structure and organization is about just that. It's about your people. It's about how you've set up your organization. So you want to list your key players, your major roles, your team players. Here's your opportunity to speak proudly about them, to talk about their strengths and experience, to impress people with who you brought on board, that you have the right team, the right people to get the job done and do it well. You may go so far as to talk about particular roles and responsibilities, duties, job descriptions. And if part of your plan is to offer exceptional customer service, it's surprising how many business plans never mention that beyond the first time. They don't have anything in their budgets about training costs. They don't have anything identified in terms of what kind of training or when or how we're going to do that. So here's your opportunity to walk the talk, if that is part of your plan. I think it helps, again, to have pictures sometimes. So let's have a picture, however you might want to do it, of your organization. And if you think about that, isn't there the traditional pyramid with the big person, the CEO, he or she on the top and all the rest of us below? Have you seen the one which is inverted, which puts our consumers or clients at the top, and the person at the very bottom of the point on the base of the pyramid is that's your CEO right there, or your board of directors. So this is your chance again. Be a little bit out of the box, be creative, draw a picture of your organization, at least for yourself. And here too, in this section, you would add, we also have a mighty advisory board, or a mighty board of directors, or perhaps other resources, other key people. And if you're very, very small, at the start, you can probably list your CPA, your attorney, your university, SBTDC Business Counseling Office, others who give the impression of a bigger, stronger, broader team. And you'll build this set of additional resources and advisors. And I hope you'll stack the deck. Get one of every type person you would really wish to have at no cost, ideally, on that board. So back to customer service. If that's one of your key decisions, this is how you're going to compete and win. Consider inserting something into the basic business plan outline. And it might be this little box, a commitment to excellence plan. For instance, it could be we're going to offer customer service or require customer service training for all staff 3 times per year. Maybe we add half day 3 times per year. This makes it real. You're devoting resource and time and focus to this. We're walking the talk now. And maybe we say we're also going to continually assess client satisfaction regarding how do they feel about treatment, about accessibility of our services and facilities, and about staff-client interactions. And that means if it's continually that you have a plan, you have someone responsible for it, and on some frequency you conduct this very polite conversation, this question, and you collect the data and you make it work for your business. And thirdly here, continuously assess referral-based satisfaction, which might most easily be done via survey, but whatever method you work out. I hope you remember last time the 2x2 matrix, which talked about all those stakeholders. One dimension was their level of interest in your business, and the other was their level of influence. And the idea was to have a different strategy and level of effort that you put to each one of those key individuals or key organizations, depending on how much influence they have and how invested and interested they are in your business. But this is where you get a chance to touch base with them, keep those referrals coming, really understand what it is they're looking for, and each of them may be just a little bit different. Back to the plan. Section 8, Business Operations. This is pretty straightforward. Where are you located? Do you have one or several facilities? Do you own them, lease them? Do you have renovations that you're going to be doing? Some of this has to do with whether or not you're asking for money. You probably want to describe the neighborhood surrounding businesses. Many healthcare-related clinics and facilities are located conveniently near pharmacies or other care providers. You want to describe the neighborhood if that works to your advantage. Do you have certain licenses and permits that you've dealt with and secured? Have you registered your name with the appropriate agencies? Any zoning issues? If not, let's make that clear. And I think this could also be a competitive edge for some of you. What about accessibility? What about transportation to where you do business? You may or may not want to add your hours of operations. If you and the others don't have, you do have and they don't have evening hours or weekends or a 24-hour call line or whatever it may be, this is your chance to help the reader understand what is truly unique and special about your business. The financial plan. It's about caring, but it's also about counting. We have to do well before we do good. So how this looks in your plan will probably depend on whether or not you're a startup enterprise, which I understand most of you are probably not, or if you're an existing business, or perhaps you're an expanding business. There are a number of ways that you can organize this. At a minimum, you'll be wise, of course, to have cash flow projections, revenues and expenses. If you are an existing business, you'll probably have the opportunity to list historical data, and we hope the trends are positive. But you'll have a chance to put in real numbers, and then there's the other side, which is speculation. My projections, what I think I'm going to get in the way of money and payout in the way of money. But of course, to the lender, to the investor, this is a critically important part of the plan. They will glance at your first page, they will read your executive summary, they will turn immediately to the financial plan. They will turn after that, by the way, to your management team to see what personnel, what staff you have on board, probably. When you do your financials, of course, to make them believable, you have to identify and write down your assumptions. I believe in these numbers based on what? So it's critical that you identify your assumptions. We anticipate picking up 2 new contracts per quarter with an average increase of $150,000 per contract, etc. And the benefit of having those assumptions delineated and clear is when things don't play out perfectly, and they probably won't, you'll probably do a little better than you thought or not so well, you go back to your assumptions, and that's where you start to adjust and refine the business plan and refine the model and get more and more realistic about what's really going on out there and how you can be the best at it. Your financial plan will probably include income statements, may include a balance sheet, may or may not include tax returns. All these things will be necessary, particularly if you're seeking capital. A couple tips in the financial section. Do a break-even analysis. Wouldn't you agree it might be impressive if your reader says they know that they need $37,500 in the till each month before they break even? They understand that an average cost of $50.50 per individual session, that represents, and now I've not got the number, I'll make one up, 272 sessions per month. And if most everybody or everyone on your team had a basic understanding of this, your organization is advanced. Do a break-even analysis. A good tendency always is estimate high on expenses, low on revenues. Go the extra mile, and here's where I think you get a chance to really set your business plan as well as your business apart from others, is do a best case scenario with the numbers. I think we're the hottest item in town. I think we're going to do it, and here's what it looks like. Aren't we all going to be pleased with this small pile of money? Do a worst case scenario. What if most everything turns south, and some of those things you hope didn't happen do? Could you survive it? And then do a most likely case scenario. With Excel, it's pretty easy to plug in different numbers and let it populate each cell, and it's not so much work, and yet you go the extra mile. I think your financials will be worth more to the reader. And finally, at this point, when things are going well, establish a line of credit if you haven't already. Anticipate your future capital needs. Where you are today is probably not where you hope to be in a few years, and especially if you have growth as part of your strategy. Anticipate future capital needs. Develop your banker-investor relationships when you don't need the money. So to end here for now, or almost end, your business plan is going to be shaped and articulated somewhat differently depending on your audience. But the final section, section 10, which you won't find in some business plan software packages, but you have in this one, is simply your conclusion. Talk about the feasibility and the strength of your business. Perhaps why people should invest in it, or why they might want to know about you. Talk about your action plan. If you say, and the next steps for our business now are to pursue stage 2, as alluded to previously. And here too you can say, for additional details, please see addendum. If you have impressive people on your advisory board or board of directors, and if they are willing, perhaps you add their CVs or their resumes, or that of your key personnel. Again, letters of agreement, potential contracts, vendor relationships, other things that would strengthen, help people to understand that you are a very strong existing business and getting better. Mistakes to avoid in writing a business plan: outdated historical financial information, outdated industry comparisons, unsubstantiated claims or assumptions about yourself or your competitors, failure to consider the downside, potential problems, and so forth. And if you're looking for money, and aren't we often looking for money, too much focus on collateral versus profits and cash flow. Investors and certainly lenders don't really want to own our stuff. They want to be paid back. They want to, in most cases, their goal is going to be financial. They want to see their money returned with interest or have a larger share of a more valuable company. So it's not so much about collateral, although that will come into the equation if you're in an early stage and seeking your first or second amount of money. Here are some resources here to wrap this up. There's a very detailed, I think fairly impressive business plan written about a behavioral health care facility, a center in Massachusetts. And I hope you can read that. You'll get copies of this, but it's a quite complete plan. I think you'll be impressed with how they've identified 5 markets. For instance, they serve schools, they serve primary care physician offices, they serve ancillary healthcare facilities. I think they've attached themselves to 1 or 2 hospitals. They also have as a goal how many of each of those type organizations they're going to market to and familiarize people with their offerings. Another resource, I'm very biased, is the SBTDC of North Carolina. This is where I spend a lot of my time. We've served 100,000 businesses in the last 27 years, and we've written a lot of business plans. Helped people to write theirs more accurately. The nextlevel.org organization is a national program. It's available on several locations in North Carolina. This is an 18-week class that helps people to refine an existing business plan or write one. Some of these classes are available through the SBTDC. Worth checking them out, I'd say. Open Minds Circle is a specialty resource organization. I'm sure there are other ways to describe it, but what impressed me, among other things, was their tagline, the go-to place for market intelligence and best practice management solutions for behavioral health and social service fields. Well, that would be you guys, right? I've been very impressed with the quality of the brief articles I've read. My impression is these folks have chosen a niche, and they do it very well. And I think they have different levels of involvement. I have no investment in that company, by the way. I'm just impressed by them. IBIS World US reports, they have an international division, which is probably of less interest to us right now, but this is a tremendous data research resource for any of us, usually available through universities or private industry. And finally, I threw in one more here, Bulletproof Business Plans. There are samplebusinessplans.com. There's a caution against finding a plan that is about a business similar to yours and adapting your business to that plan. I think you want to be careful to make sure that your plan tells your story in the way that you need it told. But it doesn't hurt to look at some sample plans and to get some ideas and to borrow the best and proceed with that. I think that pretty much ends us on time here today. I think we have invited you to ask questions, which at least one person has done, but I'm going to turn this back over to Michael here for just a moment. My hope is to see some of you in the Dan Zorn classroom seminars that are coming up, and I welcome contact from any of you anytime, and let me thank you simply today for your time and your attention.
Thanks, Ron. I appreciate your preparing and delivering this series of webinars. I think it's you have done exactly what we've asked. I appreciate also your plugging the training that all of the folks who are logged on now will receive in an email by tomorrow morning with the login, with the registration link for the Dan Zorn training. And once again, I'll mention that that is what we're calling practice-based evidence. It's a successful provider's experience in becoming a successful CABA organization. But the first one is August 15th in Henderson at the West Campus Office Building at 131 West Margaret Street, Hillsborough. That's on August 15th. It starts at 10 o'clock and ends at 3:30. The same training will be offered again on August 22nd in, I'm sorry, I've reversed the order here. The August 15th is in Henderson. The August 22nd is in Hillsborough. The August 15th in Henderson is at the Vance Granville Community College Auditorium. Both of those events start at 10 and run until 10:30, and you can register at the link that Cardinal will send out, but we'll send it out to those of you who have participated in this webinar series. If you have any questions and would like to type them into the chat box, we have a few minutes and Ron will be glad to answer them. If you don't, I would say please feel free to click the applause button if you want at the top to let Ron know that you appreciated the event. And there will be an evaluation that is sent out sort of routinely after all of these. Ron, you can notice the applause symbols from people who are saying thank you. Please fill out the evaluations too, because we have paid close attention to what you have, how you've evaluated these events, and it's helped shape the next one. So, thanks very much. I appreciate your joining, and thanks to Cardinal Innovations for collaborating with us on this series of webinars.